My name is Heather Larkin. I'm a fairy tale photographer out of Athens, Georgia, and you are listening to the Workflows Photography Podcast.
Hello, Nikki. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Scott. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I love when we get to trade guests for each other's shows. It's always a lot of fun because I know, when I was on yours, you asked me a bunch of questions that I was not expecting, and now it's my turn to ask you questions, and it's always fun to trade off.
I know. It's always good to collaborate. It's like this industry is such a great one, and we can all work together and lift each other up. It just makes such a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Hopefully I'll be okay as a guest. I'm so used to being interviewer, so we'll see.
Yeah, you'll be great. You'll be great. So the first question I ask every single guest is, what is one thing you do during the photographic process behind the camera that saves you time?
Oh, man. You know what? Nailing down specific poses has been huge for me. Huge. When I was first starting out and I didn't really know how to pose, and I'm not a lifestyle photography. I'm not trying to get candid photos. So I know it's a little bit different if, someone's going into it more of a free flow. Mm-hmm. But for what I do, I have 13 poses that I have perfected for everyone who walks into my studio. Most people who walk into my studio, I can utilize those 13 poses. And when I'm super confident and I know what to do and what I'm going to do next, it puts my clients at ease. So it makes them relaxed. It makes the shoot flow a lot quicker. They trust me. They see how confident I am. So just being able to go, from pose to pose helps in so many different ways. Definitely.
So two questions following that. The first, are you doing all 13 for every client?
I mean, pretty much, especially in the personal branding. If I'm in my studio, where I have the setups that I'm using on a day-to-day basis, then yes, it's in a lot of those poses I'm doing multiple times with either a different outfit, a different backdrop, a different expression, to mix it up so that it's not, these clients aren't looking at their photos to choose which ones they want to purchase and they all look identical. Like I'm mixing it up with composition, expression, different tweaks to the pose to make it a little bit different so that, because variety, I find that shooting with a lot of variety, I sell more.
Yeah. On the flip side of this, so you did say, because you're using very familiar poses, it presents this confidence to the client, right? Because it's so familiar to you. How often do you experiment with something that is new for you, and how does that go when you do it?
Yeah, okay. I love this question because typically the way I start my shoots is with doing the things that I know the client hired me for in the first place. And usually that includes those specific poses. Once I know that I've nailed the shoot with what they hired me for and, I got what I typically get, that's when I start to get creative and outside of the box. And it depends on the client's personality, what their brand is, how colorful they are, or if they're just more subdued. That's when I will start to kind of go nuts and do more of the outside of the box poses. And I usually save that towards the end, again, once I know what I've gotten what I needed and what they need. And then also, they're having so much fun and they're so comfortable at that point that's when I really like to get crazy with it.
When you do try something new, do you verbalize that to the client, saying hey, I'm going to try something I've never tried before, or do you just do it and they have no idea?
I don't normally verbalize it because I don't want them to start to feel any sort of anxiety, oh gosh, what's she going to do with me or anything like that. So I don't think I necessarily verbalize it unless I'm trying a new lighting setup or a different backdrop that I've never used or something like that. I'll say, bear with me. I'm just going to get, make sure, I really want to make sure I nail this for you. So I'm going to try a few different things and we're going to see what looks best. I'm not afraid to tell the clients, hey, I'm going to try a couple different things just to make sure, you look your best and the lighting is the most flattering for you and that sort of thing. If I say that, I feel like they're not what is she doing? Am I not doing the pose right? Am I not doing what I'm supposed to do? I want them to know it's on me and not on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
cool.
That's when I'll verbalize it.
Nice. Let's move into the business side for a second. So, very often on this show, we talk weddings. And I love when I get to have somebody who's not a wedding photographer come on because, it's quite often enlightening to learn a business practice or something that a business win or whatever it might be that you're not used to. You may not think about normally, right?
Sure.
So what is one thing that you do for your business that saves you time or money?
For the record, I did shoot weddings for 5 years. So I did have that under my belt before I realized it just wasn't efficient enough for me. I was spending too much time shooting, editing, interacting with clients, the really long days like that. My motto for myself and my business is efficiency without lacking the service and producing the images that I want to put my name on, that I know my clients will love. So when it comes to the business side, I do online digital reveals. So I guess quote unquote in person. So I share my screen with them. I do a photo viewing with a slideshow. I put together a beautiful slideshow with music. We go through the photos that way. I'm not someone who's just going to send out the gallery and say, make your choices and hope they get back to me. I want to get paid. I want to get them their images and I want to make it as easy for them as possible. So we schedule their photo viewing within 2 weeks, usually 10 days after their photo shoot. And we're doing it together so that they're either making the decisions right then and there on their own, or I'm giving them their advice. They're paying me, and then I'm delivering the images right away. There's no chasing the client down. There's no, I remember those days when I used to just send out galleries, and it was like, did they look at them? Are they gonna, And I will say, I do things based on packages. I don't do shoots where it's like, okay, you pay me one fee, and I give you all of the images. So just for reference there, so that makes sense to people. So I have small, medium, and large packages, or they can purchase more in addition to that. So if back in the day when I would just like send out a gallery, I mean, people are busy. It's not that they didn't want to buy the photos, but when you can schedule it and make it super simple for them, and they know they're not going to see their photos until they do this viewing with you and they purchase them and everything, for me, that cut down on so much time.
How often is it that you get, I think you asked me the similar question. How often is it that you have your clients that, they come in, they purchase this package, but then during this virtual in-person sales call, they're buying more than what they originally anticipated? Is that like a common thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That happens quite a bit. Because my packages are 5, 10, and 20 images. And again, most of this is for personal branding. And I do this for seniors as well. But the majority of what I do is personal branding. And some people will say, I just need one. I just need one headshot. And then I go through and explain to them why it makes sense for them to have more than one. And I have my whole list of things to sell them that package. And I'm like, listen, my smallest package is 5 photos. There's no pressure. If you end up with that 5 photos, great. But more often than not, because I have photographed them with a ton of variety, I do 6 outfits in 60 minutes. And most of the time, some people, I can't quite get there, but I would say 80% of the time I'm doing 6 outfits in 60 minutes or less. And so they've got 6 outfits with different backdrops, expressions, and composition and everything. It's really difficult for them to walk away with 5. So the majority, it's very rare that I sell just that 5 package. Yeah.
Nice. It's funny that, so I still do headshots here and there when I can, and I'm very close to a beautiful, it's a government owned land, but it's like an open park there. It's actually like just grass and farm and stuff that nothing can happen there. And there's this old building that was from the Revolutionary War that still stands, and they maintain it and whatnot. And I use that as a backdrop quite often. And I'm very close to it. I could literally walk to it if I wanted to. But when I have a client and I do a headshot here in the studio, we then drive over there and do some outside stuff, even though they only want the studio because it's so close. And more often than not, they want the outside stuff in addition to the to the what they originally were paying me to do. So
That's awesome.
It's a big win when that happens for sure.
It's you bring up such a good point because sometimes people don't know what they want unless you show them what is possible. So yeah, I like to do that too. There, it is more often than not, I will head outside for a little, just an outfit or two, and again, variety sells.
Yeah,
so
it really does. Yeah. They may not think they need it now, but they might need it 4 months from now or whatever, and then they have it.
And not even the needing part, but if they look amazing in it, they're not going to say no to that. So as long as you're lighting them well and they're really flattering and they like how they look in them, people have a really hard time saying no to that. So
yeah. I was not planning this question, but I was just thinking about it. When it comes to personal branding, what is your licensing like? Is it included? Like they can just use it for what they need when they buy it, or do they have to purchase that additionally? How does that work with your business?
I'm probably not the best person to respond to this because I'm sure I'm leaving money on the table with licensing. But most of my clients are coming in specifically for their website, their social media, their LinkedIn, their, in a photo for an article or, a company headshots, things like that. So typically I don't do anything like that as far as additional licensing with, like most of my clients are not going to then put their photo in an ad for like, a big company or billboard or anything like that. I guess I have had some real estate agents on billboard, but no, it's not something that I've done at this point. I think if I was getting like a ton of authors or like people who, it's just not something I've done.
Mm-hmm. I think like for me, what I would be doing personally would be having it so like the social aspect is included, but if they did want to use it for a major, state ad or national ad or international, then they have to come and get a different license on top of it.
Yeah. Sorry, did I just interrupt you?
No, it's all good. Go ahead.
I do have to say, I price my shoots so that I'm happy with the income that I'm making from it. Mm-hmm. So, I have an average sale of $2,000 per personal branding shoot. And I'm happy with that. I feel like if I was charging less than that, or giving away the farm or something, I think I might consider doing licensing more, I guess. I just haven't felt the need to go there yet. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So
it's all good.
That's where my brain is.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much potential, so many different ways that you could go with it that if the opportunity arose that you needed to think about that, the possibilities are endless of where you can go.
Right.
So at Imagen, we do AI photo editing and AI culling. So I'm wondering whether it's with Imagen or not, doesn't make a difference. What is one thing you do for the editing that saves you time?
I almost shouldn't even admit this out loud, but I'm not a super techie person. Mm-hmm. So I know that Imagen and has so many incredible programs out there that I'm not utilizing yet that I really should. I really should. But I'm kind of like an old curmudgeon, like I'm set in my ways, where I do have a preset that I've made that in Lightroom that I use on 99% of my images. And that is just as soon as I've culled my images, every photo that is applied to within Lightroom. And it's just more of a color tone sort of situation. It just gives a little bit of a pop. And I do that automatically. And that saves me a lot of time with having to adjust color tones individually. The other thing I do is it's batch editing. So if I'm going to be brightening eyes, for example, I will do that on one image and then I just sync it all in Lightroom. I used to go through and hand brighten every single eyeball in Photoshop. And then I realized that was really, really dumb and inefficient. So yeah, the syncing and batch editing in Lightroom has been really, really important for me.
Mm. Good. Yeah, I'm glad that works well for you. I think part of the reason why it does is, and I'm assuming here, but so maybe I shouldn't assume, but I think that part of the reason why that does work well for you is because more often than not, you are in the studio environment where you control every aspect of the light and and there's not that potential of something impacting it, so you get the consistency in camera automatically, which makes doing the batch syncing in Lightroom a little bit more reliable than it typically is.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, when I am shooting outside, like, in the summer, I usually do, maybe 10 to 12 high school senior photo shoots, and I'll do it by section. So, like, if I'm taking them downtown Chelsea, where I live, in the little alleyway, I will sync that segment of photo, that batch of photos, and then move on to the next one, adjust it, and then sync that one. So if I do most of my outdoor shoots on my property at home. I live out in the country, and I have wildflowers and all the things, and so I will sync those photos separately than the ones that I did like downtown, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone in a previous episode, I can't think of who it was off the top of my head, but somebody brought up that exact thing of like doing it in batches in a certain way, but they sort. So this, I believe this was weddings, and they sort it by the predominant color in the scene in a batch of photos. So if they see there's some woman in the wedding that's wearing this bright red dress, they're going to put all of that photos with that woman together, so they can edit the same for colors.
Smart.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense, because when I'm shooting outside with grass, like all green grass, I'm just like, oh, like I would rather shoot when all the grass is dead. Like, okay, like all the foliage, for example, on my property, I love shooting in the winter and fall because it's muted color tones, and it's not just like bright green that's taking over the image and just making your colors kind of wonky. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm like a dead foliage lover, or shooting in the desert where there's muted tones.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you just photographed a realtor, for example, right? You just did their branding photos. Now, what is one thing you do after the session that increases business? Okay,
so for me, in-person networking has been crucial. Absolutely crucial to getting clients. And I know you said after, what I would do after, but a lot of what I have done for my marketing happens kind of before. So if I can just quickly say what I do before, and then I'll get to what I would do after. Building connections and relationships for me has been so important. And I know sometimes people hear that like networking meetings, great, And I felt like that too. Like there were days when I was pulling up in my minivan to go to one of these networking groups, like, oh my God, I do not want to go. But I never regretted going. I would regret if I didn't go, because I always made some type of connection. Maybe I wasn't booking 10 shoots during that specific meeting, but when you can find a group that you resonate with and you are consistently showing up, you're building relationships, and, eventually giving your amazing pitch that you've memorized and that really people will remember. That's so, so, so important to have a pitch that grabs people's attention and that people will remember you. And then you show them your beautiful work eventually, and consistently going to these networking meetings, like that changed my world, changed my business, and got me where I am today, for sure.
I think it was during the pandemic when I saw like a rise of LinkedIn business networking groups where they started having regular Zoom calls. Did that start becoming a thing for you as well? Was the virtual ones in addition to the in-person ones?
Yeah, okay, so it's interesting because I put in the work in these networking groups, and I will say there are groups out there where you have to meet there's like requirements. You have to be there a certain number of meetings. You have to do a certain number of like one-on-one interactions and refer a certain number of people. Like, I don't like to be told what to do. That's not for me. Like, I preferred groups that were more relaxed and just more kind of relationship building. And if I refer you, it's because I want to. So I will say to people listening, like, there are different types of groups out there. And it's just finding the one that works for your personality. Because some people love the stringent, the rules, the strictness of it all. Just not for me. So back when I first started this business in 2012 through like 2019, gosh, maybe it was like 2013 through 2019 is when I was really doing my networking. And I would say there was a 3-year period in there from like 2013 to 2016 where I was doing this consistently. it got to the point where I didn't even really need to go to meetings anymore because I had built up my name so much that the referrals, even today, because I lived in Seattle for 11 years. So I built my business in Seattle. I'm in Michigan now. And I still, from meetings that I went to in like 2013, 2014, I'm getting referrals from these Seattle folks. Like, it's wild. And then when I moved back to Michigan, I started doing the meetings here again. Okay, all of that to say that when the pandemic hit, I wasn't really doing a whole lot of meetings because the referrals were still like, I just didn't need to anymore. Like, when you put the work in, you know, for a while there, eventually you just kind of have to like grease the wheel. And that's what I was doing during that time. So I was still getting the referrals without having to go to the meetings. I did attend a few of the virtual networking meetings that were here in Michigan, but I didn't need to as much anymore, if that makes sense. Like, if I had just started networking during that time, I would have 100% been doing all of those virtual meetings, but I still had referrals coming in, so I didn't feel a whole, need to.
Yeah. I love that, like, all this effort basically makes it easier for you to get those referrals, because we all know that referrals are one of the best ways to get business, right? So I love the fact that all the work you put in for many years made it so that you have to do far less work now to get those referrals.
It's so true. It's so true. And that leads me to what I do after I have a shoot. We're so lucky that we're in an industry where it's so visual. If someone posts their photos and tags me in it, their colleagues and their friends are going to see, and they're like, oh, who's your photographer? So that's something that I ask people to do. Well, first of all, I always ask, is it okay if I share your photos on social media? And, maybe one or two times has someone said no to me over the last, 12 years. But when I do that, I also say, if you do share it, would you mind just tagging me so that people know, that I did the work? And they always are, oh my gosh, of course, and some people will scream from the rooftops about me, which is great. And then I'll share that. So that's something that I always do, afterwards, just to try and keep that excitement going about their photos.
It's great. Yeah. I feel like there's a handful of genres where the impact of a tag can be great, right? Yeah. One being weddings, for sure, because it's the largest industry in the world. Mm-hmm. Weddings and death, the largest industries, right?
Right.
And another being anything related to businesses, right? So whether it's just headshots or whether it's branding photos, there's a whole social network designed just for that, just for business. So
it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, both online and going back to in person, I feel like we're in like a point in the world where so many people are ready to kind of quit their 9-to-5 and are becoming entrepreneurs and doing, more small business type things where they're trying to grow their business too, which means they're going to these networking meetings. So it's the perfect storm of getting clients, because any person who's in business, whether it's for themselves or whatever, they need photos. So it's an easy sell. And I have networking meetings like nailed, and like I have a personal branding course and I go through the whole thing because it's just been something, it's like not as hard and daunting as it needs to be. It really can be super, super easy if you follow certain steps. There's like a recipe to it. Yeah. But people with business, they need photos. It's an easy sell.
Yeah. I agree. This is my favorite part of the show. I got 2 decks here.
Oh boy.
Pick a color.
Orange.
Okay. I am going to shuffle through this. Just tell me when to stop.
Okay. Stop.
Okay. My next question that you just picked randomly. What does your typical Friday night look like?
Oh gosh. Okay. In the summertime, it is me, my husband, and my kids go to our cottage every weekend. And we are usually either out on the boat or making s'mores, hanging out with our friends at the lake. We have such a great friend community out there. Just family bonding time. That is absolutely what we do. That's my happy place, out at our cottage on the lake. In the winter, I don't know. I'm kind of a homebody. I'm like, I want to be at home.
You're also
watch
in a
it,
very
you know.
cold state.
Oh, yeah.
In the winter.
It blows. But whatever. It's home. It's home. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a homebody. I do love going out to eat. I'm a bit of a foodie. But spending time with my kids and my husband and my girlfriends, that's probably my ideal Friday night.
Very nice. I am also a homebody. So I like to go. I don't consider myself a foodie, but I like to try new places for sure. Even if I get the same thing I would get somewhere else, I like to see if somebody does it better.
Yeah. Well, so when I was in college, I actually graduated with an MSW. So I was a social worker before I was a photographer, and I got so burned out. And that's when I ended up making the switch. But for those 8 years that I was in undergrad and grad school, I waited tables. And fortunately, for a couple years, I worked with a chef who changed my life when it came to food. I mean, I had no idea what I was missing until I worked with him. So that really opened my eyes to different restaurants and different food. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to look at your business from a 30,000-foot view down.
Ooh, okay.
Can you share, this gets deep, can you share an outline breakdown of your workflow from lead to delivery? Not all the juicy details, but an overall summary of here's what happens when the lead comes in and to delivery.
Okay, lead comes in. I have email templates, so it depends on, what they're asking for. But I have all my different email templates. And I personalize it, but for the most part, it's templated, ready to go. I send that out with my PDF and my pricing, and I make sure that I know you said not a lot of details. I'm a talker, so
you can share as much or as little as you want. It's up to you.
My PDF is very visual. So I have some before and after photos in there. I have pictures of the studio. I have pictures of them getting their hair and makeup done. Lots of diversity in there, just really showing the process and what that looks like. And then at the end, I have my pricing with all of my packages, and I send that out, and I, do follow-up if I don't hear back from them right away. Once they book, that is when, I do somewhat of a consultation, usually just through email, about what is it that they're looking for to get out of their photos. Do they have a website? Do they have branding, colors, that sort of thing, so that I have things prepared as far as backdrops and whatever. They come in, we do the shoot, and after that, upload the photos, call them. I do have a retoucher. She does basic things for me, such as hair flyaways, any blemishes on the skin. If some of my backdrops are so beat up, so she will touch up those if needed. She sends them back to me. I just give them a once over, making sure that everything looks how I want it to. And then we do the photo viewing. And from there, they choose their photos. And like I said, we do the slideshow and all of that. And then I get paid and they get their images. And that's kind of the overview.
So I got a handful of questions with that.
Sure.
Which, by the way, you said you're a talker. That was probably the fastest of anybody's ever done that. So I
really
I
could give you more, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, it's good. It was great. So the templates, they're fully manual. They're not automated. You have the templates.
No.
You drop.
Yeah. I'm like one of these people where I get overwhelmed really easily by a lot of details. And so I've tried and looked at different CRMs, but the setup of it is so overwhelming to me that I've just never pulled the trigger, which again, I know I probably should, but I just use Gmail email templates. So I have my info@nikkiclosser.com email address hooked up to my Gmail, and all of my email templates are in there. So I get real specific. I'm not just like, oh, here's my pricing. Thanks for reaching out. I mention things that I do. For example, I will pose you and direct you the entire time, so you do not need to know what to do. I love photographing people who are uncomfortable in front of the camera, so if you don't like having your photo taken, I'm your girl. Things like that really get people interested. I say we're going to do your hair and makeup. My stylist will do your hair and makeup how you want to look. And I'm so excited to photograph you. All the pricing information is attached. And let me know if you have any questions. I try to give them the details of things to get them really excited.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yes, Gmail, I just use the templates that way. So I'll have shoot prep. Once they book, I send over the list of what to bring and all of that, and then follow up, scheduling their photo viewing, all of it's templated. Yeah.
And so you don't have any CRM in place to like track the progress of the leads that come in to when they book or anything. You don't use anything. You just.
I know this hurts you. Hurts you
no,
for
no,
me to say this. But no, I don't.
Okay. Because originally I used to use just like a Gmail label, and I would switch the label in Gmail because I don't do such high volume where I need a CRM.
Yeah.
But now I actually use, and I talked about this in episode 42, I use Apple Reminders, and they have a Kanban view in the reminders. So I make a new reminder for the lead, and then I just move the person's name depending on where they are in my process.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Second question, and you just mentioned your makeup artist, your stylist. Do you use the same person every time?
For the most part, yes. There are times when she's not available, so I do have some backups. When I lived in Seattle, studio rent out there was extremely expensive, and so I shared with a makeup artist. And then when she didn't share anymore, she was moving. I had another makeup artist in there, and we just shared the studio cost, which was great. So I would typically use her. Speaking of efficiency, the girl that I use in Michigan, her name's Megan Simmons. She's very good and she's very fast. So if it's takes her over an hour to do hair and makeup, the person must have like a mane of hair that is, but she's usually done with hair and makeup in 45 minutes or less. And then my shoots usually take, like I said, 6 outfits. Oh my gosh, 6 outfits in 60 minutes. So typically I'm in and out of there in 2 hours, hair and makeup and shoot. Yeah.
Also on the makeup topic, and this is kind of like, it's a serious question, but I'm also just curious at the same time. How often, if you had to give like a percentage, how often do your male clients want makeup done? Because like for me, if I was having it done, I would probably say, if you think I need makeup for the photos, or if you think I need makeup to, like I've got these like birthmarks here that drive me insane, like I would want them covered up potentially, right?
Yeah.
How often, if you give a percentage, how often do the men want their makeup done?
Pretty much never. The only time I can think of is when every year I photograph 300 graduating dental students from 2 universities here in Michigan. And Megan comes with me, and she'll do, just because it helps me with retouching more quickly, like any shine on the skin and things like that. She'll do touch-ups like that. But I offer it, but usually never.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So.
Okay, so we're at the end here, and basically 2 final questions. One is, for everybody who's listening to Workflows, tell them about the podcast that you host.
Oh, yeah. I host the Portrait System podcast. And I basically interview people about their business, how they started, all the way to where they're at now. They talk about the things that have been really hard for them and how they've overcome them, how they, have this great sales average, or how they're working up to a better sales average. People from all over the world, all different types of photographers. It's really inspiring, and it's really fun, and it's been so cool. Like, Scott, we got to connect that way. Like, it's just so cool to be able to talk to people from around the world. I mean, all over Europe, parts of Africa, all over the United States, Canada. It's been really, really cool to connect with so many people, and everyone always gives like so much inspiration and so many golden nuggets of what people can do in their business, and to not burn out. We're not a podcast where we're talking about, do a $500 photo shoot and then you're going to survive on that. Like, we really hone in on getting your prices up to industry standard so that we can set across the board so that none of us burn out. So that we're not working for minimum wage, So, yeah, that's kind
100%.
of the gist of it. It started with Sue Bryce. She was the one who initially asked me to host it. And so Sue is a big part of, just her self-value stuff. And, we talk a lot about that. And so, yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah. So if you're listening to Workflows and you're looking for another podcast and you're not already subscribed to the Portrait System, be sure to head over there. Yeah. We will have the link in the show notes for sure.
So and Nikki, thanks for mentioning that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And where can listeners learn more about you, specifically connect with you, and of course see your incredible branding photos?
Yeah, Instagram is my jam. I love Instagram. It's just my name, Nikki Closser, and my website is nikkiclosser.com. So that's where I am most of the time. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for chatting. I know, speaking of golden nuggets and all that, I know there was a lot in here that, people will be able to get from and hopefully make some changes or simplify in their businesses if they're still on the fence with certain technology and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, personal branding, that has been my bread and butter for the last decade. So if anyone has questions about personal branding too, feel free to reach out. Yeah, happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, Scott.
You have been listening to the Workflows Photography Podcast. To hear more from Workflows, to learn more about our guest, and for an exclusive offer for Workflows listeners, please go to workflowspodcast.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.